Hi everyone, I'm Alex Sharma, and this is Teaching Me Stuff, where I have Ganjiers from all over the world come in and teach me different stuff. Today, I'm joined by Daniel Hergenrother, aka Fidroy underscore Smith underscore CG on Instagram, who takes his background in hospitality, the beer industry, and his skill as an avid disc golf player to teach me how to make fermented hot sauce. And really, he's taking his skill as a person that makes really good fermented hot sauce and teaching me how to make fermented hot sauce. But those are some of the other things he does. Like many of the other people on this program, Daniel is a certified Ganjier that I met up here in Humboldt County. Well, without further ado, let's learn to make some hot sauce.
Here. Hello, Dan. Thank you so much for coming and teaching me stuff.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's great to be here.
Totally.
It's an honor.
So Dan is going to be teaching me today how to make a fermented hot sauce. I've made many fermented hot, or not fermented hot sauces, but I've made many hot sauces in my time, but never a lacto fermented one. So this will be a first for me and a pretty cool experience. I have some habaneros here, some carrots, and some garlic per your recommendations.
I always recommend garlic. I'll even put it in my coffee.
That's intense. Really intense, and I'm sure it doesn't help the breath, but I bet there's some get up and go there.
Yeah, well, I'm anti-vampire, I guess.
That's good. I mean, don't let fuck, if I knew the author of Twilight right now, this would be a banging reference, but I don't. I'm sorry. I have white vinegar per your
Perfect.
recommendation, and this will not actually be used for the hot sauce, correct? This will be used for cleaning the
Yeah, it's good for cleaning the fruits and vegetables. It's just a mild, anti-pathogen, if you will.
totally.
The acidic, nature just helps clean off debris and any bugs that are in there already.
Okay, awesome. So I have my mason jar here, and I'm gonna wipe it out with an ISO wipe so it has some time to dry.
Okay. Yeah, you can use I use a like a beer brewing sanitizer at home. You can use any kind of mild food safe sanitizer. Just, make sure you follow the instructions, let it dry, that kind of thing.
Do you use Star San at
Yep,
home?
that's the one I actually like a lot, the liquid star san.
Sweet. Yeah, that's what's recommended for like KNF ferments and that sort of thing too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I
Uh,
did not know that. That's awesome.
totally. Yeah. Cool. And then I have my water here for the actual
Mm-hmm.
fermentation.
Yeah.
Sea salt.
Yep, I like sea salt. I believe you do not want iodized salts.
Cool. Yeah, that would be my understanding too. I think the mineral content helps with the fermentation that I would imagine.
Yeah, I
So
believe there's some inhibitor in the iodized salt, so
that makes
sea
a lot.
salt's great.
Awesome. Well, I have my chilies here. Where do I start?
So basically you got, your surface, your knife, everything's nice and clean. You even got gloves on like a true pro.
Oh,
So I like to, de-stem, cut into them. I like to do about half inch to an inch pieces of chili. It opens it up, lets the brine inside. And if you see any black seeds or any, darkened skin, you'll want to remove that. There could be, stuff in there that can ferment your hot sauce in the wrong direction, basically.
totally. And I do have some spots here that are already a little too fermented, I would say. This wonderful little bag of organic habaneros came from the North Coast Co-op up in Arcata, and
Excellent.
they were definitely a discount bag. So you can see some black spots there, some blemishes. So we'll get to have that be part of the learning experience.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll start cutting these up, get them all prepped. I'm de-stemming them now. And then is there anything else I should look out for? Just the black spots?
Yeah, I mean, if you miss any dirt or anything, if there happens to be any debris on them, just another chance to examine everything and make sure it looks clean. Uh,
Great.
if there's any soft tissue, even if it's not necessarily already blemished, if it's kind of bruised, you'll want to remove that as well.
Perfect. There's some of that here.
Yeah, you'll want to rub those gloves right into
Right
your
on my
face.
face. Yeah.
Go to the
Totally.
bathroom. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, do the
More
opposite
always
of that and whatever you use to touch the peppers with, I would recommend gloves if you're using hot peppers. You don't have to do hot peppers is the cool thing. You can do a milder chili than
Okay.
a habanero. You can mix your chilies. Um, yeah, be careful. It's common sense, wash your hands.
Have you ever had the sweet habaneros? I always forget what they're called. But
Nabaneros or
uh,
habanadas, is that what they are?
I've heard a different name that's like totally sounds nothing like habanero and is just a
Okay.
unique name to that pepper, but they look like habaneros and they're bred to like not really have the spice, so they have that wonderful sweetness and just not a lot of spice.
Yeah, I've heard of a few. I believe I've heard of habanada, like
Okay.
habanero, but not a
Not
spicy, I
a,
guess.
yeah, not a
Yeah.
spicy. I mean, that sounds like definitely the punnery version of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I haven't had them though, but I do love the flavor of habaneros, but they are hot for me.
Totally. They're very hot. So you can probably see here, these are some seeds that are blackened and darkened, kind of.
Yeah, they're a little bit of that brown. That's actually some kind of natural fermentation occurring inside of the fruit. So you'll just want to get rid of those.
Get rid
But
of
if the
that.
skin looks okay, the pepper should be fine.
Totally. Yeah. And that's generally how I kind of uh decide what peppers I'm using anyway. Regardless of what I'm making, if they're kind of messed up on the inside or don't have the best look to them, it usually will affect the flavor as well of whatever you're making.
Sure.
It will kind of give like a more of a rotten fermented taste to it.
I do like a rotten fermented taste, but it's got to be the right kind.
Got to be the right kind of rotten fermented taste. That's for sure. Fermented food is different than rotting food. That's
I suppose that there is a clear distinction, isn't there?
yeah, there's a line in the sand. And if you don't catch it up front, you definitely you catch it after you eat it.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, there is a chance that, while your hot sauce is fermenting, it can mold. But the good news is it's very obvious when it's molded. If it grows anything green or fuzzy, it's bad.
Okay, perfect. Well, we're gonna hope for no green fuzzy mold on the hot sauce today. Um,
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I guess not today, because this process will take a couple days. We'll be back with Dan in a couple days to actually blend the hot sauce and to assess how well it worked.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. You can do, I mean, you'll probably notice some flavor in 3 or so days. I would go at very least 5, 7, 2 weeks is great. I've done 1 year before, but I have noticed the longer you decide to go, the more likely that you will get some kind of mold or something like that.
Totally. And that does inspire a question, but I should ask first, do I am I going into a step of cleaning these peppers next, or am I cutting up the rest of my vegetables first?
Well, I guess have they been pre-vinegar cleaned at all yet?
They have not been vinegar cleaned.
Then I guess I would do that now. You can just do, a couple ounces of vinegar into a medium-sized bowl and uh,
And
swirl them around, let them sit for a minute. They don't have to sit very long.
so this is the only vegetable that's going to be or fruit, but this is the only thing that's going to be vinegar washed, right? The carrots don't get vinegar washed and
I
the
would do the carrots as well.
okay. Can I
The
do that all at
garlic,
once?
you could do the garlic as well, but generally since that's wrapped up, it's
Yeah.
usually less of a contact point. But yeah, you could do them all at once, absolutely.
So I'll just go ahead and start on the carrots here. Now, you mentioned flavor development. Is why, and that brings me to an interesting question. Why do you want to ferment your hot sauce, Dan? What's the goal of it? How is it more beneficial than regular hot sauce in whatever way?
Well, you don't have to. You could do what we're doing today and just blend it right up with some vinegar and just
Totally.
go.
Yeah, and that's what
But
we've done in the past.
right, yeah, and that's awesome. It's delicious. But I prefer a little bit of that funky flavor. It gets this deepness you can't really replace.
Yeah. Totally.
A lot of commercial hot sauces are fermented. If they say mash or something like that on the bottle, that generally implies fermented.
It-
Uh, and I couldn't tell you all the science, but there are some health benefits. I know that fermented food is pre-digested, so they say that the microbes are good for gut and digestion health. And
yeah,
at the end of the day, other than the little bit of salt you're gonna have in there, everything in there is basically fruits and veggies and a little bit of vinegar. So
really.
it's kind of a little health potion.
Yeah. And I would imagine a lot of the salt gets eaten by the microbiology anyway. I assume it acts as a food like most ferments, and sort of that mineral content helps to
Some
activate the biology.
some of it definitely does, although I'm not as sure about the actual salt, the saline
Right.
itself. That's a lot also for flavor. It's used to inhibit a lot of microorganisms from fermenting it so that the lactobacillus itself can take over more or less. So if you weren't to use salt, it would almost certainly go bad. But the salt inhibits certain organisms, whereas the lactobacillus thrives in a saline environment, especially anaerobic,
Okay.
which we'll get to down the road.
Super interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the backbone of the lacto ferment, right? Is lactobacillus. So like if you
Yep.
see lacto ferment, that's really the microbiology you're relying on. It's not like this
Yep.
broad spectrum biological blend. It's like it's that. You're trying to get that to dominate.
And what's cool is you don't have to add that. It's there. It's pretty much ubiquitous. It's
Totally.
in soils, it's on foods, it's on plants.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so
Yeah, that's
there are starters you can seek out to buy. I've never used one. I've never found them necessary.
yeah. Have you ever made like labs like lactobacillus serum?
I have not.
Yeah, it's similar. You use either just the naturally occurring lactobacillus on the rice, or I use my hand actually. So I'll like stir it with my hand to
Mm,
inoculate it and use the lactobacillus for my skin.
okay,
It just
cool.
uses that to basically inoculate milk if you have non-raw milk, and then you ferment it for a couple days.
Oh, wow. Huh. And then what do you use that for?
It's like it is a lactobacillus serum, so the whey separates from the milk, and you wind up with like a high lactobacillus. It's used in KNF, in Korean natural
Okay.
farming, but it's really good as like a cleaner, as like a sanitizer. So I'll like clean things with it. And it's good
Oh,
like if you raise chickens or anything like that to like spray on in the chicken coop. The
that's
lactobacillus,
awesome.
like you said, it takes over so readily. Once you can get that to be the kind of dominant thing, it's
Mm-hmm.
taking over everything else.
Yeah, it definitely is a game of dominance, it seems like when it comes to microbes. I know that I have a bit of a beer brewing background, and lacto is everywhere on the outside of grain, so that's why grain rooms in breweries are often separate, but they can intentionally inoculate a beer to sour it with lacto by just putting in raw grain into a fermenting beer.
Huh. Interesting. So like adding a little bit of grain part of the way through the process.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Okay, so with the garlic, and I am, but am I doing the right thing where we have some of the spotting? I want to cut that off, right?
Yeah, if it's really bad on the garlic, obviously you're gonna want to remove the little the butts and y- crush into it, cut it up into like the little pieces you might. Yeah, if there's any bruises, it's probably best to just go ahead and get rid of it.
Okay. This is some nice local garlic from up at I&I Farms in McKinleyville. So it's not quite as like homogeneous as store-bought garlic would be, but there's still some nice pieces on there, and we'll get all that fungal content off.
Yeah, and since we're blending it up, it doesn't have to be pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks great.
So we got that. We got these nice local carrots from Willow Creek Farm. Let's see if we can get a nice.
Yeah, the carrots add a nice little back sweetening to the spicy sauce, I find. Gives a little bit of body.
Totally. Carrots are one of my favorite
Cool.
pieces for hot sauce. They're really good for things like this too, because they have such a nice fiber content that they wind up being a little bit healthier for you. Carrots are one of my favorite things for smoothies too, because it alters the your insulin response to the smoothie.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, so I'm mixing this up, and then this is where I start touching my face, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Just rub that all over your body.
Like
You're gonna feel
all
great.
over. It's gonna be kind of like a tanning lotion, and I'll get nice and red.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You don't need a sauna when you have pepper juice on your hands.
And just in case the sarcasm is lost on anyone, you really can, like, even a jalapeno or something like that, you'll burn your eyes right out if you are not careful.
To be honest, if you're using like I've used a couple Ghost and the Carolina Reapers and some insane stuff,
Oh,
have ventilation. Even if you're just
totally.
cutting the peppers, habaneros maybe can
Right
be
outside.
putting out that gas. And I have basically maced myself before just from cutting slash blending peppers. So make sure you do have good ventilation and yeah,
Yeah.
be be common sense. Have
And
common sense.
I would say even beyond that, like right now, these habaneros, they're late season habaneros from a greenhouse. They're not quite as spicy as what I would get in the late summer. Full sun habaneros from like Southern California that are really gonna pop. Some, even the same variety of pepper, based on where it's grown and how much sunlight it gets, can have a totally different amount of capsaicin in it.
I learned something about that in a class I took recently. It's something about terroir.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, terroir is it's everything. And that's like, New Mexico hatch chilies. That's a beautiful representation of terroir that we've kind of held in that area. That you taste a hatch chili from New Mexico, something about that dry climate, um, the hot sun allows it to express just so much differently than other places. Okay, so I'm letting this sit for a little bit now, or do you think that's pretty much
I'd say you could probably go ahead and rinse that off good with some nice clean water and
okay,
probably
cool.
probably good to go to the next step.
So, and I want to rinse it really well.
Just make sure all the debris is gone, make sure you get most of or all the vinegar off of it. It's not
Okay.
crucial so long as it's nice and clean.
Now, you you had me vinegar rinse this, and you didn't tell me to buy any pH strips or anything like that. But is pH a concern when I'm doing this fermentation in terms of adding the vinegar and then rinsing it off?
No, I mean you want it at a mostly neutral pH. The lactobacillus, when it starts to ferment, it'll actually drop the pH quite a bit. It'll drop it down into the fours most likely if it when it fully ferments after, depending on how long you give it. If you give it, say,
Right.
2 weeks, it should be relatively acidic.
Cool, sweet. And then we'll add vinegar to that, and that'll keep it nice and in states.
Exactly. Yep. After it ferments, we'll strain it and we'll mix the brine and vinegar together. We'll get to that part down the road.
Okay, so what's my next step here?
We're gonna make a brine, so you're gonna want the cleanest water. RO or distilled works. A nice good spring water or just dechlorinated if you got good tap water. And
Well, here
sorry.
here on this property, we have some nice, beautiful spring water. So I'm just going to use the pure spring water that's from here on the property.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I actually will weigh my water and my salt.
Okay.
You don't have to, you have a Pyrex, those are pretty accurate. You could just weigh the salt, but I would recommend weighing your salt at least if you don't want to weigh your water as well.
Okay. Let's what weight am I looking for on my salt if I have this nice little
I shoot for 3 to 4%, and that's of your water weight. So if you're making 100 mils, that would be 3 grams or 4 grams of salt.
all right.
200 mils, 6 to 8.
Okay, so I am likely going to 200 mils here.
Okay, so you can make more brine than you'll need. You know,
Okay.
it's better to have too much than too little. So we'll be filling the jar with peppers first and then topping it off with the brine. So
Okay.
however much water you have there, I guess I'd say You could probably get away if you're gonna do about 200 mils. I'd say just make 200 mils of brine.
Okay. So 8 grams of salt.
Yeah,
Is that what
that
you said?
sounds great. That'd be 4% brine. That'd be great.
Yeah. Wow, 7.3, close.
This guy knows his salt weights.
Get in there. Okay, that's 10.9. So,
Could be a little high.
all right, 10.9. And then how much water? 200 mils?
Well, if you have 10.9, you could go a little higher than 200, I suppose.
I'll go.
Math is hard. I guess you could do like 250 or so.
And I'm a big guesstimator, to be honest with you. I do a lot by eyeballing, and I think it's okay, especially with some of these things, to let people know that like it doesn't have to be perfect.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of art and a little bit of science.
Totally, yeah.
And the science tends to come with the art.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's backing it up, but like people did this for a very long time without any amount of anything. So I'm just
100%.
mixing in the water into the salt, correct?
Yep, just get it as dissolved as you possibly can. You know, sometimes the sea salt won't 100% dissolve, but
Right.
just do what you can. And then you're basically going to stuff your chilies into your mason jar. All your garlic and carrots as much as you want in whatever ratio you want. Um, and then you'll want to leave some headspace. So I have a little pint-sized mason jar here. You're gonna need a weight or a bag with water or something to keep everything submerged. So I would leave the line about 3/4 or so of the way up the jar, or less. You can always do less, but I wouldn't fill the jar all the way up.
And I'm going to use here, I have my little bag of amethysts and quartz that's going to operate as my weight. So I have my brine here, salt is dissolved, and I'm about to put my chilies, carrots, and garlic into my mason jar here. So let's get this out of the way for frame. And so not all of my chilies and carrots here are going to fit in this mason jar. So I'll try to grab a nice even ratio.
Yeah, you can make as much or as little as you want. That's the cool thing.
So yeah, and these so how does that look?
Yeah, I think that's about right. And you can really stuff them in there too. You know, you don't
Really
want to break the crap out of them, but you can really push them down hard. And
down a
you
little
want
bit.
to, yeah,
Cool. So maybe even a little bit more in there.
yeah, if you can jam it in, do it.
Cool. And you can get a little more full.
I'd say probably right around there is
Right
about
in
what you're
there.
gonna want. Yeah, you don't want to push it too much, because when you fill this up now, you're gonna want to fill the brine up just above all of the fruit and veggies in there. So you're gonna want to make sure that the top of your peppers is below the surface of the brine, and that's where that bag will come in. There's also, you know, if you ever get into it, you can buy these little glass weights that fit into
Oh, cool.
a wide mouth mason jar, and they just, you know, sit at the top, hold everything down.
Okay, great. So I'll pour this in. Hopefully there's enough brine. And it looks
Look at that.
over the top, just barely. Perfect.
That's like perfect. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, now you got your bag that's nice and fresh and clean, and then you'll just kind of set that in on top and make sure that you see all the chilies and everything underneath. If you spill over a little brine, that's not the end of the world.
All right. There we go.
And
And
then
a little brine, but I think it's okay.
yeah.
All
And then
right.
last but not least, you can always use a normal mason jar lid. You
And
can
that's
also again optional. You can buy these. They fit wide mouth, and then you'll need an airlock. They're only a few bucks each. Otherwise, if you just use a normal mason jar lid, get it on there nice and tight. I mean, it doesn't have to be cranked down or anything, just airtight. And then you're gonna want to burp that probably once a day. um, at least for a week, depending on how long you're gonna ferment it for. It won't build up much pressure like a beer fermentation or something would, but it will build up a little bit of, uh, it'll degas a little CO2.
Okay.
That's where the airlock comes in. If you have an airlock, you don't have to do that. And then, so after about 5 days or so, you're gonna really notice when you open that, it's gonna smell funky. It's gonna have a little bit of a peppery, funky kick to it that it won't smell like the first few days when you open it up. And you can take it as long as you want, and at that point, you'll blend it, strain it, well, strain it, then blend it.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Mix in your apple cider vinegar, and a little bit of the brine as well.
Yeah.
Get to a consistency you like. You have the option of adding something like xanthan gum, which is just a thickener, totally optional, and then you'll bottle it up.
Okay, great. And forgive me, I blend the brine directly in with it, or
So
do I
first
stick
you're
the brine?
going to strain the brine out,
Okay,
and
cool.
then
And
you
then
will
add
add
vinegar
brine with the vinegar.
with the
And you
vinegar.
can do different ratios. A lot of people do 50-50. You can go heavier on one than the other.
Very cool.
Um, and and then you also kind of, it's again more art than science. That's when you kind of decide how thick or thin you want it.
Right.
Whether or not to strain it after you blend it is another thing you can decide.
Yeah.
But I stopped doing that. I kind of like the little bit of a chunkier
Yeah,
sauce these days.
totally. Yeah. Yeah, I always try to leave all the fiber in and all the good stuff and just let it
But
be. I think if you're not sending,
yeah, exactly.
it's all good. Yeah.
But for today, that's it. That's all it takes. Just a few chops, a little brine, and a weight or something to keep it underneath the brine.
Super simple. Okay. Well, we have
Uh,
here the first stage.
I will warn you, it will get cloudy, and that's good. That's the normal thing. That means it's being fermented. It might get some white floaties, I'll call them. That's totally fine. It's just anything fuzzy or green or brown.
No.
It'll be on the surface. That's what you want to worry about. But the cloudiness, a little film even on the top is totally fine.
Okay. Very,
So just so you know, don't be scared. It might look a little weird.
it'll look like it's fermenting.
Exactly.
Okay, awesome. Well, perfect. I'll let this sit in a couple days. Anything else I should know about the burping? Just open it up for a second, let it off gas, close it back.
Literally just, you can just pop it like that. It'll
Fantastic.
neutralize whatever pressure has or
Awesome.
has not built.
Cool.
And
And
you
once a
get a
day.
little whiff of it too, smell it when you do that.
Get a little smell. And once a day.
Yeah. Yeah, and you do want it to be quick because you want it to let things out, but
Out,
not in.
not in. Okay, cool.
Ideally, you want an anaerobic environment,
Right.
and so when you burp it, it will let some air in, but so
Totally.
long as everything's submerged, it should be okay.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, a little different than burping some other things.
Yeah, it's not
All
like
right.
burping a baby.
Well, awesome. There you have it. We have the first stage of some fermented hot sauce with Dan. Thank you so much. We'll see you in a couple days.
Thanks a lot. Look forward to it.
I'm gonna use maple vinegar.
Oh, dope.
Yeah. So
I've never had that.
yeah, it's from Minnesota, not too far from
I
you.
was gonna say, yeah, there's a lot of maple trees in my neck of the woods. No pun intended.
Yeah,
Actually, kind of pun intended. I guess
that's
literally.
a bit of a pun intended, but
It's literally,
that's
yeah.
okay. Um, yeah, no, it's basically from your neck of the woods almost.
Yeah, Minnesota's just a couple hours drive.
Yeah, totally.
It's Wisconsin's Canada.
It's Wisconsin's Canada. Wow, I don't think Minnesota would like that at all.
I know, I
I
doubt
know
they
from
would.
what I know of people in Minnesota, they would not jive well with being called Canada.
Hell yeah.
It's-
I just mean their whole population lives on our border and the rest of it's pretty empty and cold. So,
Okay,
no
well,
offense, Minnesota. I like Minnesota. You know, I got good memories of Minnesota, good folks there.
well, welcome back, Dan. And you will actually be one of many people from a similar region that is coming onto this show. And I'm actually not using apple cider vinegar today because the only apple cider vinegar I have was made in Minnesota by another Ganjier named Gislin. So I'm going to be saving that for a different episode on how to make apple cider vinegar with Gislin. So
Dope.
today I brought my maple vinegar from Minnesota. Sorry, not from Wisconsin.
Hey, Midwest, right?
Yeah, right.
You can edit out that beginning part, by the way.
It'll go into the blooper reel.
There you go.
Um, but it's it's pretty fitting given the number of Minnesotans I'll have on this show. It'll be
Oh
pretty.
yeah.
So I also have my fermented hot sauce that I've been letting sit in the warmest part of my house for approximately 6 days.
Cool. Yeah, that's something we didn't touch on is temperature, but that looks great, nice and cloudy.
And I'm noticing bubbles are rising to the surface.
Yep.
That's part of the fermentation.
Those are the gases that they put off. That's why you want to burp it every day or so.
Cool. And I've been burping it probably every 2 days or so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I'm in a space that's not fully heated, so sometimes it's warm, sometimes it's cool. Uh, okay, so I have my hot sauces. I have not cracked them yet today. I have some jars, some bowls. I have my guar gum, which is a replacement for the xanthan gum you recommended as a binder or a thickener. I have a little bit of salt for taste. Is there anything else I'll need? And my blender, of course.
Optionally, well, you do need a strainer to separate the brine and the peppers, and you can also opt to post blend. You can strain it again.
Okay.
I personally just like to blend it up well and not strain it.
Totally. Yeah, I think what we'll do today is we'll just give it an extra blend so it's nice and smooth and creamy in the Vitamix. And
Cool.
that will actually help bring out some of the pectins that are in the peppers, and it'll kind of emulsify it a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so what is my first step here?
Grab that strainer and a bowl and basically dump the brine out from the chilies. Separate the chilies from the brine.
Okay.
Are you going to do them both together? Mix the batches?
I'll probably do two separate batches. So we'll start with this jar here that has been you know, has had some infusion time with these crystals.
Heck yeah. Give it some energy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Amethyst and pink quartz.
So
So
you didn't see anything fuzzy or green, huh? Just nice and like kind of white, milky, and filmy.
yeah, no fuzzy, no green, just a little milky. Yeah, some fibrous, but
Yeah.
nothing gross looking. Smells really good, has a nice funk. I would put that in my body if I smelled it.
Heck
Yeah.
yeah. Well, then it sounds like you're good to go. Yeah. So go ahead and just dump that brine out however you can.
So we'll go ahead and
But save the brine. Don't, just if you've never done this, don't dump that down the sink. You're gonna need some of that.
oh, that brine is flavor.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of funk left.
So I went ahead and I strained it off. And will that brine be spicy? Like, is that I want to rub that
Yes.
on my face again?
Yeah, that's a good exfoliator.
Good. Yeah, it'll bring out the reds.
Mm-hmm. Wash your hair with it.
Yeah. Ooh.
No,
Scalp?
don't do that.
No, don't do that. Don't try this at home. Well, try this at home, but not the face part. So now I have just the veggies.
Yeah,
No
great. Yeah,
brine.
chuck those in your blender.
Throw them in the blender. Okay.
Chuck them on in. And
Nothing
now
wrong.
you can go ahead and start the blender if you want. I like to add a little bit of the apple cider vinegar and the brine while it's blending. You can do a little bit before. There's no specific set amount. You're just kind of, this is again where the art comes in. You can do a little bit less, do it thicker. You can do a little bit more and do it a little thinner, somewhere in between. But basically, I like to do about a 50-50 mix of both. You can also go a little heavier on the brine if you want it a little funky saltier or heavier on the apple cider vinegar. Totally your call, but you will want a little bit of both.
Okay. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna go strain this other batch here so that we have enough in the blender. Ooh, that one was fermenting, huh? Enough in the
Heard a
blender
pop?
to blend it up nice and easy, and so we can limit the amount of vinegar used. Uh, okay, so again, I'm just seeing fuzzy. This one's a little more fermented. It's bubbling a little bit more. You can
Looks nice and cloudy.
yeah, that one's going. So I'll strain that off again. Oh, we're getting close. Uh, Okay,
That's gonna be a spicy sauce, I have a feeling.
it's gonna be a spicy sauce, yeah. Habaneros have some kick. So I added a little bit of vinegar and a little bit of brine in about a 50-50 ratio, and I'm using this maple vinegar here. So it's gonna be real fancy. Now it's starting to blend.
Alright, so yeah, I mean, basically from there, I just keep an eye on it, and when it starts to get liquidy, I start to just kind of dribble in a little bit more of the brine slash vinegar until it gets to a consistency you're familiar with hot sauce, you know? Nothing too specific.
Let me go ahead and make a little bit more of the 50-50 mixture. Wow, that brine is spicy. That is going to be a spicy sauce. I can still speak though. All right.
And you know, there is an option here since you're blending, you could chuck in something else. Like if you had more fresh peppers, you could throw one or two of those in there, or
Okay.
just anything else that wasn't fermented.
Okay.
Totally an option though.
Okay. So is this looking like about enough vinegar on the minimum side, or maybe a little bit
Um,
more liquid?
it's really hard to say on the video, but if you know, you picked it up and kind of like sloshed it around, if it doesn't have to run thin like liquid, but it should pour like a sauce, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a loud blend for a second. So we'll probably move through this part pretty quickly, and then I'll ask some questions on the other side. Oh my God, is that spicy?
Yeah, this is a good quick PSA. Again, with the ventilation I mentioned last time, especially when you're using stuff like habaneros, this is where you can really blind your household. So
Yeah,
windows, fans, overhead, you know, gas stove hoods.
totally. And let me just say, I have a ton of experience with spicy peppers. I'm very comfortable with them. It it's still choking me up.
All right, have fun.
All right, let's go. We're going in.
That is saucy. Looking like a sauce.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's looking like a sauce. It definitely.
Go
It's
get some
feeling
air,
like a
dude.
sauce. Woo!
Go get some air.
Ah. Okay, we got it. So we got sauce here. And
Yeah.
dare I say, it's hot. My God.
I
And
mean, yeah, those are the ingredients of bear mace, basically.
yeah, this is how to make bear mace. We now have it. Dilute this
It's
down, put it in a spray bottle. You have bear mace.
boom. Or put it on some food and it's delicious.
I would do that. That would be my recommendation. Yeah. If you have an issue with bears going through your trash, maybe you could make it a little extra spicy. So at this point, do I want to add the thickener?
Yeah, you can just put that on a nice low blend. Most thickeners, it's, you know, read the package or the instructions. It's usually a very small amount. And again, you could go lighter or heavier on that depending on how thick you want it. And again, you don't even need this.
Yes, yeah. So this is mostly going to prevent that separation, right? Like it's going to help kind of stabilize it in the jar and make it look a little more homogeneous.
That and when you pour it on food, it'll help it from kind of just running off.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
It'll
won't
actually help
separate
stick
on the
to the
food as
food as
well. Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah,
I would
a
imagine
nice
that's
option.
sort of how they get the homogeneity in like strained hot sauces as well. Like if you were going to strain this, you wanted that Tabasco-like consistency, you would need that gum to kind of like add some body to it.
Yeah, if you're ever at the grocery store and you look at the hot sauce, like the ingredients, most of them are just chilies, vinegar, salt, and most of them will have either a xanthan or some kind of binder to them.
Okay, cool. So now I open this with caution.
With caution, of course.
Okay. And is there anything particular I do from there? I have a vessel to put it in right here.
Yeah, that's it. You can use a mason jar. I mean, you can use anything that's a food safe vessel. That stuff is good for a long time too. It doesn't need to be refrigerated, but of course it's better to keep it in the fridge. But yeah, all you gotta do is bottle it up. You're good to go.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, it's ready to use now. I like to try to wait a week to just kind of let it cure slash homogenize a little bit. But you got sauce. Good to go.
Sauce. Okay. And I'm gonna
You
go
got
ahead and
bear mace. Good to go.
good. Bear mace, good to go. All right, and let's go ahead. Very careful to not splash this everywhere.
It's a nice color you got off those habaneros.
Beautiful color. And so this is now ready to cap up and jar up. I don't need to add anything to this, do anything to this.
The only thing you want to add is to your liking. You could add more salt, more vinegar, whatever, however you want to do it, but it's ready to go.
And then that would also, if I wanted to like blend in some sugar or something like that, I could do that here as well.
Totally. Yep. You could sweeten it up, or a little lemon juice is a nice touch.
Totally, yeah. Okay, so my final question here as we let this beautiful jar replace my blender for the moment. Um, I have this jar of brine, this large jar of brine, presumably full of flavor, and I have a little bit of my vinegar mixture here. Can I can I use this? Can I save this? What can I do with it?
Yeah. What you do with it again, that's where the artist in you comes in. I'm not sure what you as the chef would have a better idea of what to do with that. Maybe you have some suggestions of what to do with the hot brine.
Yeah, well, certainly in terms of cooking it down or adding it to sauces, it could be used as a flavor base. I guess my question is, should I add vinegar to it to help stabilize that as well? Or do you
Um,
think that's a stable product at this point?
it's most likely pretty stable. It's got a lot of salt in it, and the lacto fermentation does drop the pH quite a bit, which, again helps to shelf stabilize. Adding vinegar to it certainly wouldn't hurt by any means, I can't imagine,
Okay.
but
So
I don't know if that's necessary.
it's almost like the equivalent to like a kraut juice or something like that at that point, where like it still has all that lactobacillus and all that good ferment stuff, but the issue with this is it's spicy, and if you took a shot of it, you'd be the
Cough.
bear that got maced. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure it's very similar to something like a kraut or a kimchi juice, I have to imagine, 'cause it's a very similar fermentation product or process, just a different product that you're fermenting.
totally. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I personally, I think the ideal version is some kind of probiotic shot, but this is way too spicy. So
You know,
I'll
you
likely be using it in sauces and as a base for things.
so I'm a big gardener, and that's why I got into making hot sauces because I have an abundance of chilies in the late summer. If
Totally.
you ever have fresh tomatoes, I imagine blending up some of that brine with those and making a nice salsa. I can't imagine that would be bad.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, blending it up as a base. Yeah, using it as a base for any real sauce, I think would be awesome.
Hmm.
Okay, sweet. Well, maybe I'll share at the end what I end up doing with this as well. Uh,
Cool.
Thank you so much, Dan. I feel like I am educated on making fermented hot sauce, and I will do my best to not burn myself in the cleanup process.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much. We're here, and I'm not choking anymore, so I'm gonna try this because it's probably delicious. And so we're the last step of the hot sauce is eating the hot sauce, and I can't give you any because it's virtual, but I get to try it.
And how's your heat tolerance normally, would you say?
Decent. That was hot.
Yeah, all habaneros is a lot.
That's a really good sauce, though. That's really like the flavor is super complex, and you can tell it's like bolder and has more depth than it would if it was just a fresh sauce. Like a fresh sauce would have just killed me. It would have just like put me out and I would have started hiccuping. But that there's like this other richness to it that like has a
The
relation
funk.
to the heat, that funk. Yeah, totally. That's really, really good. Holy crap.
Awesome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's really good, but it's even better on food.
Okay. Well,
It's good raw, but you know.
sweet. Well, I'll go make some food then and I'll eat it. I so not an acai bowl.
I mean, up to you,
Okay.
but I recommend it on food usually.